Welcome to Agatha Christie She Watched, our spoiler-heavy look at the movie and TV adaptations of the mystery genre's greatest writer. I'm Bill Peschel of Peschel Press, publisher of the annotated novels of Agatha Christie, and today we're talking about sleazy gangsters, young lovers, musical numbers, and comic butlers. Yes, you guessed it. It's Unknown, the 1965 Bollywood musical adaptation of And Then There Were None, starring an all-star cast of Nana Karantaki, Manjo Kumar, Helen, and, as the butler, Mahmood. And yes, these are going to be important. But first, let me introduce my partner in marriage as well as crime of the fictional kind, Teresa Peschel. Hello, Teresa.
Hi, love. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and to discuss a film of the likes of which I have never seen anything like it before. We watched this, and I swear to God, my mouth was hanging open for large portions of it. It's just, it's really difficult for me to rate this movie because the Bollywood conventions, this is an Indian film from 1965 from a studio in Mumbai, and it is just so different from Western cinema. It, obviously you have a story and you have young love, and yet it is just really different. I don't think I have ever seen a huge Busby Berkeley dance number in the middle of a slasher flick, which is what And Then There Were None actually is, in which you have the dancing butler, Miss Kitty, a cast of hundreds of backup dancers, all gyrating in front of what look like Easter Island heads with eyes that blink on and off with laser beams. It's one of a kind, folks.
That was a scene that was in the middle of the movie, and it's a dream sequence, which is why we get the Easter Island heads and the statues. And yes, it is very strange.
It is very strange. It is very strange. This was a really strange choice for a Bollywood movie. I know that Agatha Christie is extremely popular in India, both in English and in a wide variety of translations. India is a hugely diverse country. Probably just in one tiny section of the country it's as diverse as all of the United States combined. It is enormously complicated. But I really don't know who thought it was a good idea to make a musical full of singing and dancing of And Then There Were None.
It also didn't help that we went into this blind. We knew that the title is actually Gumnaan, which means unknown or anonymous, and we only knew that it was inspired by And Then There Were None. It wasn't like there was an actual rights issue here, and we noticed also they had copped a number of things from other movies as well, and I'd say borrowed insteid of actually.
They were inspired by. They didn't steal it, dear. This was research.
This was homage.
They took it and made it better.
So when it started out with a nightclub scene in which there's this obviously sleazy guy hearing traffic outside, and there's somebody stepping outside and gets run down by a car and killed.
And various sleazy phone calls and so forth to mysterious people, all shot in the dark, and then suddenly you're in this happening nightclub, and I mean, it is happening. Teddy Lyons and His Cubs is the name of the dance band, and they're playing, it's not exactly 50s rock. It's sort of.
It is a dance band combined with an actual
Indian
guitar group lineup. And the song is Jean Pechen Ho, which is, please excuse me for the mistranslations and mispronunciations, but it is actually a notable song. It's one that has cropped up in various CD compilations and was actually used in a movie, an American movie called Ghost World.
No, not Ghost Town, but Ghost World, which we have never seen.
Yeah, but I did see the opening of it, and it appears on the screen. This dance number, which is very frantic, and it has guitars, and everybody's wearing masks. They're wearing black masks.
The gentlemen are all wearing black jackets, white shirts, and black pants, relatively short, and there is a female dancer. And she's also wearing a mask. She's wearing gold lame to make her stand out from the army of backup dancers who are all wearing pink, and they're all wearing fringe, and they are just shimmying their hearts out. I'm amazed at what amazing dancers they are. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I kept noticing in this, is that unlike in any kind of a Western movie, those female dancers were wearing sensible shoes. They were wearing flat shoes so they could really position themselves and dance their hearts out. And this dancer, this amazing dancer who is masked and wearing the gold lame, you never see her again. Her sole purpose is to start the movie off with a fabulous dance number and then disappear wherever fabulous dancers go.
All along, as we were watching this, Teresa's saying, so where's the plot? Where's the plot? And they finally announce it after the number is over. The owner of the nightclub steps up and announces that we have 7 people who have won a trip
to this mysterious little island.
It was 2 weeks along the coastline.
Yeah, 2 weeks along the coastline, and they're going to have a wonderful, fabulous vacation. And he reads off the names. Suddenly, there you are on the plane with the 7 people, and they are strangers to each other. And there is also the steward on the plane. Mm-hmm. The plane lands suddenly in a cornfield.
With engine trouble.
All the baggage gets thrown out. By the way, not a lot of baggage. It's all magical baggage because the ladies, particularly Miss Kitty, and that is her name, Miss Kitty and Asha, both they're carrying little overnight bags that obviously have interdimensional capabilities because, boy, they sure come out with a lot of amazing clothes, makeup, and jewelry later on.
So they're out of the plane. And then the plane takes off.
And the plane takes off and abandons them.
Leaves them and the steward behind. So you have 7 people?
7 people plus the steward. That's 8 people.
Right.
And they are wandering through this jungle. They have no idea where they're going, and you're wondering why they're wandering through this jungle. They're apparently on some kind of an island because they never find a road.
And we only learn it's an island another half hour from now when they finally reach a shore and they talk about themselves being on an island.
You look at the ocean, that is obviously the ocean that they are looking out, particularly with the large freighter that goes steaming past, because that is not something you are going to see in a lake other than the Great Lakes, because it's an ocean-going steamer. Just take my word for it.
And this is also while they're walking through the woods, jungle.
Oh, yes, and then they start hearing the mysterious theme song, which you hear repeatedly all throughout, whether you want to or not. The island must be wired with speakers, except you never find out where the voice is coming from, I assume.
Until the very end.
Until the very end, yes, when you find out that it's actually the butler's sister, whom you have not seen on screen other than one single flash of someone in red. You have no idea that this person even exists, or how it is that she is following everyone around in the woods with an orchestra.
With an orchestra behind her. She's also mentally ill as well. There was something about it in the Wikipedia entry.
And I don't know where they got that from.
I guess it explains why she keeps singing.
I don't know. Well. I don't know because see when you see And Then There Were None. This is our 9th time seeing And Then There Were None. There are 10 in all that we will see. We still have the Russian one left. And it's going to be real different from this. I know that. So we've seen, now this is the 9th one. What you eventually learn in each one of these films and from the novel is that UN Owen, Mr. Unknown, who sets all of this up, he has to put some effort into setting up the island, the Swiss chalet, the safari camp, the hotel in the desert, the whatever it is. He has to set it up with cameras, and he has to set it up with sound systems, and he has to do things so that as the people are wandering around and they hear the terrifying things happen, it doesn't just happen out of the blue. Well, these folks, I have no idea how they managed to find the house, which is this huge mansion. It looks like it's crumbling on the outside, and on the inside it's beautifully lit and absolutely gorgeous, and you wonder where on earth those generators are that are providing the power to light this place, because those jennies must be big enough to launch a steamer. And how could you miss the noise? There's no roads, there's no nothing. You can't imagine how they managed to find this place, how they carried all their luggage through the jungle, and then suddenly they're there, and they walk into what looks like I said, it looks like an abandoned ruin. You fight your way through the rubble until you get yourself inside the building. You turn on the lights come on, and it's this absolutely gorgeous building, and on the giant table in front of you is a body wrapped in a sheet that then slowly rises to its feet as though it is being lifted up by wires. The sheet falls away.
It gets pulled away by its occupant.
By its occupant, who is fully alive and has apparently been resting comfortably on the table, draped in a sheet. And he's a famous Indian comic actor. Mahmood. So I want you to think about And Then There Were None, knowing what kind of a novel this is. Now put in Jerry Lewis.
As the butler.
Or Jim Carrey, or Robin Williams, or substitute the zany, loony comedian actor of your choice. Put him in a striped shirt, a long patterned skirt, a Mo Howard of the Three Stooges haircut, and a Hitler mustache. A little bitty toy one to make sure that you know that he's actually not dangerous. And he is a comic character. He was a huge star in India. I'd never heard of him before that very moment, of course, but he is a huge star in India. And honest to God, it is like putting Jerry Lewis in a Sarah Phelps movie. And you just think, what? What?
La, nice lady. Hello, ladies and gents. It's so wonderful for you to be here.
And it was just bizarre. And by the way, he gets to sing and dance too with Miss Kitty. The dream sequence dance where he is dancing with her, singing with her, trying to put the moves on her, and she's not really having none of that. And it was, I just keep coming back to, I don't know what to say.
You just kind of let it wash over you because there's obviously holes in the plot. There's obviously great gaps in this plot. And I think part of we had the trouble with, and this is always the trouble with dealing with a different culture, is that you don't quite know the source of anything odd that you're seeing.
Yes, and I'm sure that there were jokes in here that had Indian audiences rolling on the floor, and we were also completely reliant on the subtitles. And I think that a lot of the subtitling was haphazard. The way they did the songs, they subtitled all of the songs, and they kept repeating the same line over and over and over and over and over and over.
It was essentially a verse. It was a verse of like 4 lines, and they would repeat that 4, 5, 6 times.
20 times. Don't know if that's true, or if it was just easier for the subtitler to do that. And this is always the problem with a subtitled movie, is it is only as good as the translator.
Yeah.
I am sure that there was nuance that was lost. It was lost on the subtitles, and so it was lost on
or
us.
It was just poorly subtitled. There's a wonderful scene. Miss Kitty is this beautiful redhead. Helen is her name in the credits. And she is a major star in India. Apparently she's a major dancer, actress, and this was one of the roles. You told me about this.
Yes, when I did a little research on this after the fact, this is one of the few roles apparently where she really got to show that she could act as well as sing and dance.
She had a character part as opposed to just being the girl who dances during the number and then vanishes.
Yes, and they had the girl who dances during the number and vanishes, and that was the dancer in the Gold Lame Fringe that you saw at the very beginning, who does an amazingly energetic dance at the very beginning and then vanishes, and you never see her again. And she did her function, and this time Helen as Miss Kitty got to speak in front of the camera as well as sing.
Right. So it's clear by this time we understand we're not going to get a one-to-one character lineup between this and Then There Were None.
Oh no, you end up with 9 people on the island. I would guess that none of them really translate. There is a barrister, but he is not the person who set this up. There is a doctor. He does let himself be seduced by the villain, who turns out to be Mr. Sharma. There is Asha, who is our heroine, and she is absolutely nothing like Vera Claythorne in any of the previous versions that I have seen, including the ones that take it from the stage where Vera was not a murderess. In this case, Vera is also not taking the blame for her sister's murder. She is a completely innocent person. She is the niece of one of the man who's murdered at the very beginning of the show, and you wonder why on earth she's on this island in the first place when she is a completely innocent bystander.
Right.
And so much of the And Then There Were None plot is completely dispensed with. There is a diary that shows up periodically on the table, and so one of the characters gets to pick up the diary and read the new entry that says, oh, you're all here to die. But there's none of this.
There's no specific accusations.
No specific accusations against anybody.
There's no poem to count off against, and there's no statues to count off against.
Yeah, no statues either. There are a lot of statues around, including the giant tiki heads with blinking on and off laser eyes. There are a lot of statues, but nothing like taking 10 soldiers or 10 Indians and breaking them one at a time. No voodoo heads like what you got in the French one. Nothing like that.
But they still get knocked off one at a time, and you still have the mechanism by which one of them is killed but is actually not dead, and he's the one who's actually setting it all up.
It is not the barrister the way you would expect, although he does seduce the doctor into helping him. But you don't see that. You don't see any of that on stage.
They did explain that at the end. They did show
a little bit.
They did show a little bit of that.
And they completely changed the plot. See, what you can say about And Then There Were None is it is a nihilistic novel, no question. But those 10 people, they deserved it. They deserved it. They were all criminals who could not be brought to justice in the normal way. And that is why Justice Hargrave chose them. He killed himself, too, at the end. There were 10 victims in all, because he also, if you read the novel carefully, you discover that the man who helped him set all of this up was well known to the police for a variety of reasons. Someone who skirted the law, but had been managed so far to avoid jail for all of his nefarious crimes. Here, our arch-villain is not trying to get justice for crimes that can never be prosecuted. No, this was a revenge gangster killing where Mr. Sharma, it turns out that he was part of a smuggling group. He was the one who was caught. He was arrested. He went to jail.
Men.
Of the 3 men, he was the one who went to jail, and he was told, you keep your mouth shut, and when you come out, we'll split everything up. He got out of jail, and
he didn't get the money.
He didn't get his money. And so he killed the other 2 people, and then he decided that he was going to punish the people who were involved in the deaths of the other 2 people. He killed Khanna, I think, and then Asha's uncle, who was also the smuggler number 2. Asha's uncle was murdered as part of a conspiracy by Khanna. There were like 5 or 6 people involved in that, and then Mr. Sharma gets out of jail. He discovers that Sholtani, Asha's uncle, is dead and was killed in this murder plot, and then he kills Khanna, and then he arranges for all of these people to be given these tickets so they can go off to this wonderful island and spend a luxurious 2 weeks vacation. And you think, for a gangster, this is a lot of money, and this is a lot of setup, when none of these people, particularly Asha or the steward on the plane, they're completely innocent bystanders. Why on earth are they involved? Just kill them. It doesn't have that sense of justice that Justice Wargrave did. Because of the way the movie was scripted, I have no idea what the scriptwriter was doing, probably spending too much time on the dance floor with one of the dancers, but you never get any kind of real explanation as to who these people were and how they were connected to the original death.
It all comes in by a single sentence, a single bit of dialogue.
A single piece of dialogue
nothing.
Somewhere at the very end when Mr. Sharma is telling you what's going to happen during his playing Russian roulette in the catacombs underneath the castle. And you're thinking, but, when did we see Mr. Dharamdas do this? When did we see Dr. Achera do this? You see nothing. You never get any confession from anyone like what you normally see. You never get any accusation of anyone from that you would normally see. This is roughly based on And Then There Were None, but wow, they took a lot of liberties with the text. They took more liberties with the text with this one than in any version I have seen. In all of the versions combined, it's just really different. And it was really different, too, when supposedly everybody's worried about being killed, and so they go off and...
They go off by themselves.
They go off by themselves. They go down to the beach. They sing and dance on the beach, and you keep expecting Annette Funicello to show up at any moment. She would have fit right in. It's a charming number. It's a charming, happy song on the beach.
Yeah.
You get our 2 leads who are completely overshadowed by most of the other actors, Asha and Anand. Anand is the steward on the plane. And they have this long romantic ballad in the rain.
At night.
And you're thinking again, what does this have to do with the plot?
Right, and that's Nanda Karnataki and Manjo Kumar, both of whom were longtime actors and actresses, very famous in India, and obviously not to us. And it finally boils down to Arnad it turns out, is a police officer.
Yes, he is a policeman. He is not a Philip Lombard clone. He is not a friend of Philip Lombard's trying to figure out what happened. No, he is trying to track down Mr. Sharma because he knows that Mr. Sharma is actually, I'm going to mispronounce the name, an evil super criminal named Manadal who is behind all of this because he didn't get what he was supposed to when he went to jail and came out.
Right, so the last half hour or so is this standoff in the dark catacombs involving fights that kind of don't end, and he gets overpowered, even though he was the one who had the gun. Arnad had the gun, but he got overpowered, so he's tied to a pillar, and Asha's tied to another pillar.
And Mr. Sharma is threatening them and playing Russian roulette with them. And then suddenly, from out of nowhere, the butler shows up and
unties them
and everything, and
ends in a chase out into this field,
and then the plane shows up.
The plane returns with
policemen
the police
on it to rescue them. and there was so much of this movie was badly shot. It was shot in the dark. I couldn't tell what was going on. The transitions from one scene to the next, I couldn't tell what was going on. There was a sequence where I distinctly saw Anand, the butler, and this mysterious woman in red, and it just stops, and you don't know what they're doing. You don't get a single line of dialogue. You have no idea what's going on. And then the butler and whoever it is in red completely vanishes, and then they reappear at the very end of the movie. You have no idea where they were all of this time. And it turns out that the woman in red is the butler's sister, and she's been singing the unknown, who is unknown, who is this mysterious person? She's been standing around singing at everyone for the entire movie through the mysterious non-existent sound system.
And they even started to make a joke about it because she started to sing it on the plane while they were flying off, and the butler threatened her, saying, "You sing this one more time, I'm going to poison you." And then the butler starts singing it, and you just wanted to go, "No, stop! Why didn't you just stop?"
This was all very different. I really don't know how to judge this, because the conventions of Bollywood, where you're going to have singing and dancing, whether the plot needs it or not, is so different from what you would see in really any kind of a Western movie. Even musicals tend not to be gangster flicks at the same time that they're musicals.
Yeah, the musicals in the MGM musicals and all the Hollywood musicals tend to be much lighter fare. You don't have a serious revenge drama
with a serial killer.
Happy.
With a serial killer.
Involving a serial killer, involving happy dancing and singing on the beach. And there's a wonderful song between Asha and Miss Kitty.
They sing about being drunk.
Miss Kitty was resisting being drunk by the guy who I think is
the barrister,
who reminded me of a young Rodney Dangerfield. And once I got that image in my head, I just kept seeing him because he's in this kind of bowling shirt like outfit, and I just kept thinking of him cracking on Rodney Dangerfield like lines. Especially when you see our hero has this bucket hat, this pink bucket hat that really doesn't look good on him. And there's a lovely line from Caddyshack where he says, "Oh, nice hat. Oh, you get a bowl of soup with that?" He tries to get Miss Kitty drunk, and she keeps resisting. And finally she decides that she's going to drink, and she gets absolutely soused, and so does Asha,
and they have this wonderful drunken song where they're standing around waving around the bottle of Long John.
Long John
whiskey, I guess.
I'm sure there's nothing to that.
In this absolutely, again, a magnificent bedroom. Wow, the wardrobe that those two ladies managed to stash into their interdimensional luggage was impressive.
And every once in a while you caught a glimpse of something in the music because you spotted a Harry Belafonte song.
Yes, all day, all night, Marianne. I am positive I heard that melody.
It was kind of incidental melody among all the other melodies. And there's another song that shows up in early on, and it's a cover version of the title song from Charade,
which I did not recognize at all. And Wikipedia, the font of all information, claims that this is true, so I guess it is. I don't know.
I listened to it on YouTube.
Oh, you did?
And compared it, and yes, it is. It is
the
that same motif. There's a note for note motif, but when it's run through Indian instruments, it does have a different flavor to it. I see there are certain homages
that are built in,
being borrowed.
It's a really interesting movie, and I think if you want to be an Agatha Christie completist, or if you're interested in Bollywood, either way, you should certainly watch it. It is its own self. It is unique. I think there were technical issues. There are definitely issues with the subtitling, because I am sure we did not get the full nuance of what the film is trying to say or do.
When watching this movie, the thing to understand is that there are going to be some things that are going to be technical difficulties. I think, though, that
and I would add to that, in the technical difficulties, I distinctly got the impression we were missing some film, because the transition from one scene to the next was non-existent. It was choppy, or it was non-existent. And there were scenes where it seems like there should have been dialogue and there wasn't. I'm thinking particularly when we saw that glimpse of Anand and Mahmood the butler, and I guess it was his sister, and you get no dialogue, you get nothing. You just get this flash on the screen in the dark, and you wonder why on earth you're seeing this. There were a number of places where the transitions were really bad.
So there was probably bad cuts, like when the film breaks and they just trim parts of it, because this is a 2 hour and 30-minute movie right now.
Yes, and it may have had several minutes that we didn't see, because, well, it just wasn't in the version that we got from, it came from Amazon Prime, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, we got it from Amazon Prime, but that does not mean that Amazon Prime got all of the pieces of the film. It works on its own terms, but it could have worked better if they would have spent a little more time on the script, and they would have spent more time filming it with turning the lights on when they film. It would have helped enormously.
But then there's all these things that you would love to see, all these things that you see, like the dancers are all wearing flat-heeled shoes. They're all wearing very sensible shoes for the dance sequences. There's none of these high heels. All the costumes are very modest. The swimsuit Miss Kitty wears is a nice one piece at a time when Annette Funicello was bouncing across the sands in bikinis.
Oh yes, and she has this wonderful cover up. It is so styling. Beautiful gowns, amazing eye makeup on the ladies. The gentlemen are sometimes...
They're all smoking like chimneys.
They all smoke like chimneys. Every single person on this screen smokes like a chimney. Some of the gentlemen are wearing odd clothing choices. I'm thinking particular Mr. Dharam Das.
Dharam Das, yes. And he's the religious guy.
The religious guy, and that's all I can say is he's the religious guy. He said, by religion, by religion. By religion, I believe, or by religion, I would.
This is the translation that we wish was a little more accurate to kind of understand what he's saying.
Yeah, we had no idea. And it's possible that he was... Again, an Indian audience would have known exactly what was being parodied, and they would have been rolling on the floor, and we were lost.
But he was wearing what I would have called a dress.
Oh, the pink one?
The pink one, yes,
yes,
with the puff sleeves.
With the puffed sleeve and the great big, I want to say Peter Pan collar, and that is like totally wrong, except that maybe it was a Peter Pan collar, only greatly expanded. But yes, the pink dress over pants, and it was just, and at one point he was wearing what looked to me like a blue pair of, bright blue pants, a white shirt, and it looked like he had the blue jacket attached to a button at the back of his pants so that it hung behind him like a train. Mm-hmm. Like he had a cape, a tablecloth attached to his waist, which was weird. And again, an Indian audience of 1965 would have recognized what he was doing, and we were lost.
Yeah. Overall, a very conservative, a very establishment viewpoint here, because of course the police will fly in at the very end to arrest the bad guy. Our hero did not kill
anyone.
Didn't kill anyone. He didn't kill the bad guy.
And our heroine, Asha, was a completely innocent victim of circumstances. She was charming, she was naive, she was a virgin, and she was completely innocent of any kind of wrongdoing whatsoever, and she would certainly not even lie to save her own sister from the gallows.
And unlike other movie adaptations, we didn't have a sex scene between Philip Lombard,
which I am not unhappy about. I am not unhappy about. At least on the you do get the romantic singing in the rain, but it is just
that's the extent of it.
But that's the extent of it. It's not like watching Hugh O'Brien and
Summer.
Yeah,
was it
no,
Elkie Summer
Elkie Summer
and
was with Oliver Reed, and they had like zero chemistry, which was really sad. Hugh O'Brien was in the 1965 version, and whoever was playing the Vera Claythorne part proved that all blondes immediately turn into round-heeled women when faced with Hugh O'Brien, because they just collapse in bed with them, even though they know he's a murderer.
Mm-hmm. They're threatened with murders all around them.
One of the things that was so strange about this is everyone is afraid, they don't know what's going on, and yet they go off exploring in the woods to sing and dance, even though you would think that they would lock themselves in their rooms in order to avoid being the next person who gets murdered, and yet they go off in the woods to sing and dance.
Yeah, and there's no real depth to the script. There's no real attempt to find out who did it. They just stand around and accuse each other and deny that they're being accused and just kind of hang around until they get killed.
Or until they can burst into song
or
again.
They burst into song and dance. So this movie was the 7th or 8th highest grossing movie in India in 1965. And I checked it out. I compared it to the American box office for that very year, and at $5 million, which doesn't sound like much nowadays, but a dollar went a lot farther back in 1965. That would still have made it like a number 20 or number 21 in the American box office, which is very respectable.
Earned its money back. It made even bigger stars of all of the stars who were there. I mean, it is an all-star cast. It is absolutely a star-studded movie. And yet, as an American or as a British viewer, as an English-speaking viewer, you won't know who any of these people are. But they were huge, especially Mahmood, who played the butler. He was a huge star. You know, the Jerry Lewis of India, the Robin Williams of India. Huge.
And I could see where some of them do. I could see where some of them could be stars, because like Miss Kitty, she is very vivacious. She looks unique. Arnaud is, you know, he has that very nice regular features, handsomeness. He can stand out. And some of the others as well. Certainly Mr. Damardas, the religious fellow, he has a very unusual face. He was a great supporting actor. As a matter of fact, I think it was Mahmood and I can't remember which one, Nada or Manjo, were nominated for Best Supporting Actors. There's an Indian equivalent of the Oscars, and they were nominated for their performance in this movie.
Because they did a good job.
They did a good job. So
they did a good job.
You know, we want to give them props for this. At the same time, we're saying there's a lot we don't understand, and we see there's a lot that could have been a lot better.
Especially with the cinematography. Turning the lights on when you film is always a good idea, so that the audience can see what the heck is going on, and a script that would have explained more of what was going on, particularly why you have this enormous house out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by what looks like a kind of religious statuary you would see in a convent garden. That was weird, too. There was a lot of weirdness in the set designs, and a lot of weirdness in the plot, that a little bit less singing and dancing and a little bit more time spent on dialogue and plot would have gone a long way towards making this more understandable. But they didn't, and so this is what you get.
This is what you get. So if you're interested in Bollywood, if this sounds interesting to you, that's probably the best recommendation for it. If you want to see And Then There Were None, I would say don't see this, because this is not And Then There Were None.
Even though it is loosely based, and I say loosely, and they did not give Agatha credit in any of the credits that I could see. It is very much its own thing. When I think about the other 9 versions that we have seen, because we've now seen the 1945, which everyone knows, we saw a kinescope from 1959, which was really remarkably well done. We saw the 1965, we saw the 1974, we saw the 1989 taking place on an African safari with Frank Stallone, God save us. We saw the Sarah Phelps, we've seen the Japanese one, we saw the French one, and we're going to see the Russian one soon, and then we'll have seen 10 versions of And Then There Were None. And this is not the worst. I don't know where I would put it. I would have to say, of the ones that we've seen so far, probably the Frank Stallone in the African Jungle was the worst.
Yeah.
Absolutely the worst. Zero charisma, and all of the things that they could have really gone out and done, they didn't.
Now, what about the Oliver Reed one that took place in Iran?
Oh, God. They de-sexed Oliver Reed. They de-sexed Oliver Reed, and they de-sexed Elkie Summer, and they should have lit up the screen, and they didn't. And there was so much that was wrong with that movie. I can't even begin. And this was better.
I think this was,
This was better. At the very least, it was different.
I think what it's also doing, though, is it's staying in my mind afterwards.
Yes.
Because it is so strange, and I kind of look back on it and think of all the little things. Like there was the butler, Mahmood, had this little thing. He had a tea tray, this little rectangular tea tray.
With paint. They were lavender, with this lavender tea set. And it was white on the inside. The porcelain was white on the inside, and the outside of the cups and the plates and the teapot were lavender. And he would flip the tea tray around 360 degrees, and the teacups didn't move.
And they were probably glued in.
I'm sure they were glued on.
It was a visual joke. And
it was a
did
visual
twice.
joke. And he did, yes, several times. And he made jokes about the food and about the service and how he was waiting on all of these people, and complaints about how he had to do this kind of cooking and that kind of cooking and a third kind of cooking and a fifth kind of cooking, because, again, India being extremely diverse, different groups of people will absolutely refuse to eat certain kinds of food, and they are all different, and they all have to be catered to. It was loaded with basically fun stuff.
Yeah. For 2 hours and 30 minutes. Actually, I've had longer movies that
were shorter.
that were shorter than 2
movies.
hours and 30 minutes. I don't know that I'd necessarily want to see this again, but maybe we will someday. I don't know.
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll put it in, and we will fast forward through the boring parts, and we will watch all of the dance sequences, because they are so amazing, and all of the sequences with Mahmood the butler, because he was funny.
Mm-hmm.
He was funny. I can see why he had a huge career in India, because he's funny. And at the same time, he is so wildly out of place in And then there were none. But what can you do?
Yeah. So this concludes another episode of Agatha Christie She Watched. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Visit our website at peschelpress.com. See our coming appearances. Look at our books upcoming. Look at our Agatha Christie reviews that Teresa has written. We have them all posted up there and readily available.
Yes, and we are putting together the book Agatha Christie She Watched even as we speak, so it will be ready. We should have it in hand when we go to Malice Domestic in Bethesda, Maryland in April of 2023.
And we'll see you at the movies.
Thanks again for joining us.
Agatha Christie She Watched is Teresa Peschel and Bill Peschel, produced by Bill Peschel. New episodes come out every week wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/mystery and leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on Mystery She Watched, email Peschel at peschelpress.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to Peschel at peschelpress.com. And thank you for listening.